Welcome, everybody. Today is July 31st, 2025. Welcome to the IC Topic Chats. We've got Maria and Terry today. They're talking about AI, artificial intelligence, with regards to writing proposals. This, from my opinion, is one of those areas where there's so much opportunity for us as independent consultants. And I was super excited that Maria and Terry wanted to talk to us about this today. I'm just going to be quiet, let them jump right into it, let them jump right into the show. So go right ahead. Welcome to the IC Topic Chats.
Thanks so
Thank
much. All right, Maria, since I'm sharing, I don't remember who's doing what slide, so you're gonna have to help me. You have the other one
Sure.
that has the speaker notes in it.
Yeah, I can get started. So first of all, just a disclaimer that this presentation was made by humans and by AI. So just a little disclaimer. These days we kind of need to do that. So we can go to the next slide and talk about the purpose of this presentation. So we've prepared about a 30-minute presentation for you, and then we can take questions after that, of course. So we've got two purposes in the presentation. First of all is how AI can assist evaluation consultants in their proposal writing workflow, starting from tender scanning up until submission. And the second purpose is a live demo use cases for AI, specifically for responding to RFPs or tenders. So we wanted to kind of have a very practical hands-on session. So starting first with common challenges with proposal writing in the next slide. We do notice that there's a set of common challenges that we face when we apply as independent consultants for tenders. The first is the time that it takes to prepare a bid is often limited and the process itself is onerous. The RFP tender documents tend to be complex and lengthy. The eligibility criteria are sometimes unclear or buried in different places in the text. It's also hard to quickly access fit or competitiveness for go, no-go decisions. Then there's the pressure to write high quality proposals with limited internal resources. There's a need to generate resource reference lists to understand or summarize a topic or context quickly. Templates and annexes vary from one RFP tender to another. It's also very time consuming to be tailoring our CVs, etc. Um, and then there's limited support or coordination if applying as an individual consultant. So just briefly, these are the sort of challenges that we face.
I'm
I'll
going to
turn
pause you real quick,
Terry.
Maria. You keep using the word tender, and I want to make sure I understand what you mean by that because that's not a term I use oftentimes. So you're using it in coordination with RFP or request for proposals. So a tender document would be similar to an RFP.
Yeah, I'm using them interchangeably. In my mind, they are. Is there a substantive difference?
I don't know. Because I don't ever use the word tender. So
Ah,
it's just good. It's just a new word to me. So I'm just wanted to make sure I understood
okay.
what I'm hearing. Yeah, and I think it has to do with the fact that I'm mostly U.S. based, and that word tender may be something that you use
Yes.
or hear in the international space, or perhaps I know you said you work in Asia and Africa, so maybe that has something to do relevance there.
Yep. So anytime a consultant is required, whether a consulting firm or an individual consultant, that document, I'm using that interchangeably, request for proposals, TORs, tender, I'm packaging them together.
Great. That's a new word for me. I'm gonna look it up, add it to my dictionary.
Cool. Yeah. So I'll turn it over to Terry.
Yeah, so Maria kind of shared a little bit about the challenges. There are others I'm sure that each of us could say from our own personal experiences could be added to that list. And so what we're going to do is kind of talk through what is like the general workflow that we have when we're applying for evaluation tenders or RFPs. The first step is usually just to review, like what exactly are they asking? What are the requirements? Making that go or no go decision, structuring your proposal, writing core sections, editing and tailoring content, and then doing your final check before you actually do submission. And this is the fun part. So we actually did use AI to help us with this, and it came up with this beautiful table, right? It said, here's the different steps. Here's what you would expect without AI and with AI. And Maria and I went through these and revised them and kind of made sure that they flowed appropriately for this. But without AI, if we're looking at an RFP and we're trying to figure out, what exactly is the timeline for this, not just for the proposal piece itself, when is this due, but also what's the timeline for the scope of work? Is this worth the budget? All of those different things. With AI, you can quickly summarize and extract key information surrounding eligibility, criteria, deadlines, that sort of stuff. And we will demonstrate how we do those different steps as well using AI technology. If we are making that deciding on that go, no go, if we have no AI, we might just be going with a gut feeling, like this doesn't feel like something that's aligned with, my capabilities or my feasibility. We might use different checklists, and I know there are a couple checklists that people from this IC topic group have generously shared. And so I encourage everybody to kind of look at those materials and review those materials, as they are super helpful. But we can also look at using AI to help us make that no go decision. So is this a good fit for what I'm able to provide? What might be some of the risks or scoring potential, right? Especially if you have a smaller team, maybe is this something that's going to require a larger team based on kind of what AI is generating or gathering from the RFP or tender. Structuring the proposal without AI, oftentimes we kind of have a standard template that we might use for responses, and we kind of recycle those old formats and just kind of plug and chug different content into that structure, maybe rewriting different headings and stuff like that. With AI, it can actually generate an entire outline for you of your proposal based on the tender requirements or on previous content. So you could actually upload a past response that you've done and say, kind of use this structure to help generate an outline. Writing content, as we all know, there are times when you can just sit and stare at a blank page for minutes, hours on end, and just kind of think, how might I go about explaining my capabilities, or how might I go about describing this methodology in a way that's going to resonate with the reviewer and with the people that are scoring the actual response that you are submitting. There might be times when you feel like you're rushing content, or that because you've kind of copy and pasted from past proposals, you feel like you already have it written, but it's maybe not tailored specifically for that particular RFP. And so with AI, you can use it to help draft support for context methodology, bios, make sure that your bio sketches and things are reflective of your individual people that you're bidding on the proposal, their capabilities are matched to what that requirement is outlining in the RFP or tender. Editing and tailoring content, this is actually sometimes what I use the most, is if I have a narrative maybe already pre-written from a previous response, I will go in and say, can you enhance this? Can you rewrite this to better reflect what is embedded in the RFP? So if you already have pre-existing content, you can have it help you with rephrasing, doing those tone shifts, rather than trying to kind of do that on a manual level. Final checks, there's the proofreading, formatting, cross-checking the requirements. Did I actually get everything that's in this RFP based on their scoring criteria? You could submit your final document that you wrote and say, generate a side-by-side with the scoring criteria to show, did I meet all of the requirements in this response? So that might be an option to do. And so that's kind of what's meant there with AI, the requirement mapping. The proposal submission process without AI is manual and can be lengthy. With AI, sorry, it can't do it for you. Everybody knows that when you get to the step where you have to submit, if you're responding to an RFP, that's got to be done manually within whatever system they are accepting. So I know some states you can email a person, right? You're still going to have to submit the email. For some states, it's going into their vendor system and submitting all of your documents and materials within their vendor system and going through that whole process. I'm sure on the international side, it varies from organization to organization, country to country as well. But that's the one step I think that AI cannot replace a human with, is the actual submission. But it can help maybe set up reminders so that you don't miss the key deadlines, or help you to kind of keep in track of different documents that emerge, especially Q&A sorts of things. So it can, if you get a new Q&A response from the RFP, somebody else submitted questions and answers, add that to kind of your ongoing chat, to be able to kind of have it say, here's new information or information that wasn't highlighted in the previous, or these were the key questions that people were asking, so that you can kind of make sure that you're aligning your response as well. So that's kind of the workflow. But what we really wanted to do is spend the bulk of the time doing live demos for you, to show you some of the different tools. So Maria is going to show one specific tool, Google LM Notebook. I'm hoping I'm saying that one right, Maria. And then I'm just going to show the paid version of ChatGPT, so you can see a little bit of the differences between how these different tools operate. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing, Maria, and then you can share your screen to do the first demo, and then we'll shift back to me.
Sure. Thank you, Teri. Okay. So are you able to see? Perfect. So this is the Notebook LM. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Notebook LM, but I find it quite helpful for, in particular, for the first 3 steps when seeing an RFP. So the first step would be to review the actual RFP, then to do the go, no-go decision, then to do a, let's say we decide to actually apply, then we need to kind of conduct a context overview or a review of the literature, just to make sure that we're anchoring our methodology and our approach into the actual context. So when I go to Notebook LM, the first thing is to create a new notebook. Let's say that I have this RFP here that I've prepared on the side. It's for a project, an evaluation of a project, agriculture project actually in Guyana. And I'm interested in exploring whether I should apply or not, but I don't have the time to go through it. So just to let you know, I'm gonna kind of just show you the actual document that I've just uploaded. It's really massive, lots of details and everything. I don't have time to go through all these details. All I need to know is just basic information, so that I can decide whether I'm really interested in applying or not. So I've just uploaded this RFP in here, and I've prepared a set of questions that I'm going to copy into this one. So these are pre-prepared questions. There's a bullet in the beginning of my question because, I have my list in bullets, that's all. But so is this RFP open to individual consultants or only companies? So just to let you know that I've got my file, the RFP itself, selected on the left, and I can deactivate this file. I can deselect it at any time if I want to ask questions about other sources that I'm going to upload in a moment. So these are my sources, and it's going to answer my question based on whichever sources on the left side of the screen are actually selected. Okay, so you can ignore the right part of the screen for now. And I'm just going to question it about these sources. The second question I have about the RFP is, what's the deadline to apply? And it's going to tell me the deadline is April 30th of 2024. Okay, what is the composition of the evaluation team? And I've got a big evaluation team proposed here, 4 to 6 consultants, and these are the positions. Now, if you do notice that it's actually giving me a reference, and if I hover my mouse over the reference, it's going to give me the exact source within that source, like the exact snapshot of the part of the RFP document. So it's going to tell me where this is coming from in case I'd like to double check. And this is actually one of the strengths of Notebook LM compared to other AI tools, is that the possibility of hallucination is very, very minimal compared to the others, because it's a contained environment. So it's only answering my questions based on my sources. It's not accessing the web or anything, unless if I input a specific website as a source or a YouTube clip as a source, which I'll show you in a little bit. But it's restricted. The answers are restricted to the actual document. Now, let's say that I want to see this part and see what's coming, in context. Then I can click on this reference here, and it will show it to me within the context of the RFP tender. So I'm able to not only double check, but also see the before and after of this section. So it's telling me that there are several positions requested in this RFP. So let's say, what are the requirements from the evaluation team? What are they requiring? Okay, so they need a team leader, one position, education, experience, technical expertise, etc. All it's doing is just pulling it out of the RFP document and giving me the specific answer that I need. Let's say that is the number of days of the evaluation stated in the RFP, then yes, it says yes, it does state the number of days, this is the overall duration, etc. So now it gave me all the answers. Let's say that I am kind of in principle interested, and now I need to check if, this what's required in this RFP compares well with the experience that I have. So I can upload my own CV. And this is a CV, of course, that I mean, I have Maria, my last name. I mean, Google knows my last name, but that's it. There's no other extra details that Google LM does not need to know about my CV. So I've uploaded my CV. And then I can say, this is another strength of Notebook LM is it's able to, again, within this contained environment, compare two documents. So I'm asking it, check my CV and tell me if I satisfy the requirements of the position of team leader, for example. Let's see. If not, I can show a prepared example. And as you notice here on the left-hand side is that once I uploaded my CV is automatically selected. Because if my CV was not selected, it would not be able to answer this question for me. It would tell me I don't have enough information to compare yours because you didn't upload your CV. So make sure that the actual CV is selected. So based on my CV, it's telling me that yes, I satisfy the requirements for the position of team leader because this is the education, the qualifications, my experience, this is what's required. What's required is at least, 5 evaluations. I have this kind of experience in evaluation, these previous full-time positions, etc. So that's fine. Now, I also want to show you that the answer is not always yes, you qualify for the requirements of an evaluation. Sometimes it's no. So I'm asking it now, based on my CV, do I satisfy the requirements for another position requested in the team, which is local context specialist? And let's see what it says. And it says, based on your CV, you do not appear to satisfy the requirements for the position, and these are the reasons. Okay, so minimum 5 years, etc., knowledge of the context, whatever. I don't have experience in Guyana. Fair enough. Now, going back to the position of team leader, can you list each of the criteria mentioned in the team leader role and show me how I meet them one by one? So it's going to list out each of the criteria, and under that, it's going to tell me how I meet it and why do I meet it, if I satisfy the criteria or not. So based on the CV, you have a very strong profile for team leader. Why? Because they're requiring this, you meet this criterion based on that. They're requiring, advanced qualification in this, and then you have this. Okay, so point by point as instructed. So the prompting is not as, say, strict as ChatGPT, is not as finicky. You can speak to it with very natural language. But again, it's giving you answers only based on the sources that are ticked in here, uploaded and ticked in here. So let's say that I am actually interested in applying, and now I'd like to deselect those two, and I'd like to add more sources that I found elsewhere. So I found some sources about the agriculture sector in Guyana, and I'd like to kind of, go over the context and just make sure that I understand it very well. I can anchor my methodology in the context. Let's say that I also saw this link in here that I really liked. So I'd like to add it as well to my source. So I'm able to upload sources that are not only documents that are up here, but I'm also able to connect it to my drive. I'm also able to connect links and also paste actual text. So I can link it to a website and say, pull information from this website as a source as well, and click insert. So that I can also go back to add and add another type of source. So I'd like to add a YouTube clip here that I found about Guyana's development, agriculture sector. So I'm going to bring it into my sources and click on YouTube here, and I'm going to paste my YouTube link again as one of my sources. So I can do that. And I also have a small text that I really liked, which I'm going to paste in here, and I'd like it to use it as a source. So on the right-hand side, I can paste an actual text that I found on a website. So let's say that this is all it. I check my sources on the left-hand side. What I've got is all of these publications and YouTube clips, etc. My own CV and the RFP are deselected. Let's say I'm not interested in using them. Now I'd like to ask it a couple of questions about the context itself. So the first question would be this one. Give me an overview of the agriculture sector in Guyana, its main challenges and opportunities. Okay. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that you always have the option to save the note. So save note here at the bottom. Sorry, it keeps disappearing because it's giving me the summary. So I'll show it to you maybe for the earlier question. Everywhere, and anytime it answers a question, it says save to note, because if you do not save it as a note, it disappears. So it doesn't keep that in its memory. It's not like ChatGPT or the others. If you're interested in keeping this text, you really like it, you can save it as a note, and then it'll go on the right-hand side of your screen as an actual note you can keep referring to, you can export, upload, etc. So now that I've asked it a question about the sector, so it's going to give me all the sector with all the references, so I'm able to double check where it's getting its information from, the main challenges, food, vulnerability, shocks, etc. Okay, so one more question. Let's say that that's a good question to ask. Based on the RFP and the other sources, now, which main actors do you suggest I interview for this evaluation? Now, one thing I just noted now is that I forgot to select the RFP. So we'll see if it will answer based on the previous questions about the RFP, or it's going to tell me you didn't upload the RFP. But the point is that it's able to answer a question about which main actors I should be interviewing for this evaluation. So I'll just wait for the answer before we wrap it up. But while we wait, just wanted to let you know that an extremely well-known feature of Notebook LM is this one here on the side, where if you really do not feel like reading any documents, you can select whichever documents you'd like in here and then click on generate, and it'll generate a podcast for you based on these documents. And it'll be a podcast based on two AI hosts that are talking to each other. And what they're saying reflects, it's like a summary, an audio summary of whatever documents you've selected in here. And you can also use some of the pre-made features in here, like a timeline, do a timeline for me based on a set of policy decisions or whatever. It's able to put that together for you, questions and answers, a study guide, etc. So I won't go through these just because of time, but just to go back to the answer here, so it's suggesting for me a whole bunch of actors that I could potentially interview based on the sources. And in this case, if I click the RFP, it would be based on the RFP as well. That was very quick, maybe a whole lot of information, but I hope it was kind of a good, good overview.
So a lot of us use ChatGPT and are not as familiar with Notebook LM. There's kind of a chat going on in the chat. Um, what have you done a comparison between this and ChatGPT, and why do you like Notebook LM?
Um, I think I did when I first started learning Notebook LM, but to be honest, I'm always worried that ChatGPT is going to pull in a source that I don't quite like, or where sometimes I click on a link and it takes me to a source that doesn't even exist. So that makes me quite worried. I mean, I still use it sometimes, but this one is my primary go-to, specifically for working with documents and publications. I know it's not inventing anything. The room for hallucination it hasn't happened at all. And all, from what I've seen so far, users are also reporting that, the hallucination risk is almost nil. it's a very contained environment. It's like you're only questioning these particular sources. You're choosing the sources yourself. Now, I should say that you have the option of clicking on discover and saying, hey, give me sources about the agriculture sector in Guyana. But again, we fall into the same problem as ChatGPT. So that's why it's a very separate kind of button. It wasn't, primarily intended to be used for this.
Maria used a phrase hallucination risk. Does that mean they're they might be creating a reference or a source that's not real? It just sounds correct. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I once gave it an acronym for a project and I told it which country it's in, and the project was totally invented and it totally made me believe that this project actually exists. It gave me names of organizations, it gave me links, which of course none of them would work. So this is a risk. It doesn't mean that GPT is not helpful. It's amazing, but this risk is always kind of in the back of our minds as we work with it.
And I know when we get into the chat function a little bit, we're going to hear a lot of great suggestions. Probably you guys are giving a wonderful presentation. I hear a lot of suggestions about making sure it's all about the commands that you give and it learning and knowing your backstory and your background. I hear that a lot from my coworkers here. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, that's it. I'll turn it over to
That's
Terry.
the okay. Go ahead, Terry.
Maria, there was a question. The version that you're using, is that the paid version or the free version?
No, that's free.
It's free. Okay, so that's helpful for folks to know as well. Using the Notebook LM, it did look like somebody else posted that there may be like specific requirement on how many notebooks you can have going at one time under that free account, but it's similar to ChatGPT, where if you start with kind of the free account and you're using it and you end up, I ran into a situation where I was using it so frequently for this one task that it was like, you don't get more minutes until tomorrow. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I probably need to shift to a paid version, which ended up being a really good thing for the work that I do. Um, so I'm going to show a little bit about ChatGPT. Most people are familiar with it, but I have a paid account and use their projects function. And so I'm going to kind of demonstrate what that looks like as well. And let me go ahead and share my screen. So, excuse me. I have different projects so if you start a new project, you can kind of give different files. So just like Maria was showing, you could add your CV, you could add other people's CVs, past proposals, those sorts of things into a specific project. So let's just do an example of that where this is going to be our test RFP response, right? This is going to be our project. I'm going to go ahead and add different files that we want it to kind of leverage. So just like Maria did, I'm going to add in my CV into this one so that we know I've got uh, that one in there. Hold on, I got to find my actual CV. We'll just put in these two. We'll do a CV and my bio. Um, might want to add a past proposal that I've done that I was successful in my award. So if I go up here and go to my contract on this one, or actually, I'm going to go, sorry, now I've got my prompt back here. Go to my RFP response. So this was my submission. I can go ahead and put an unredacted final version of a past proposal in it. So it kind of gets a sense of my writing style and different things, right? So once those are added, add those files into our project. Oop, they're added there. I can also add instructions, so I can give specific ways that it's going to respond. So, for example, I am going to tell it when generating narratives, reduce the use of bullet points. Okay, we're just going to say that as our instructions for this. One thing that I've noticed with ChatGPT, it loves a bullet. It loves a bulleted list. And so if I'm writing a narrative, I don't always want to include lengthy bulleted portions unless it's relevant for that particular section. And so now we have our instructions. We can go back and modify these. We have a couple different files. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a different file up here because this is the one that we're going to want to kind of have it work with us on. And I'm going to go ahead and find an RFP that is expired. So it's not anything that anybody needs to be bidding on now, but we're just going to go ahead and put in this RFP that was from 2022 for an external evaluator. And I'm going to start by saying, provide a summary of this RFP, include the requirements and deadline for submission, deadline and format for submission. Do not pull from the project files for this task, just because we don't want it to pull in things from the past project or the other project that I loaded. So we'll just go ahead and see what it says. So here's the response. It's what the Vermont Agency of Education is issuing on September 14th, 2022. And then it's going to provide a purpose, the scope of work. Similar to what Maria was showing, this does actually tell you where it pulled it from. So this is the document that I loaded. So I know that these bullets are likely from that. I would want to go back and kind of confirm. The requirements are here, how it's formatted. There's some, you want to make sure you're not going over word limits and stuff like that. So you can ask that. And then it already asks me, would you like me to draft the summary into a one-page executive brief suitable for a leadership review, which would help with that go, no go. If you're in a team, you're working with collaborators on something, you want to kind of say, hey, do we want to bid on this? That might be a perfect next step. So that would be helpful for our internal proposal team planning. But I'm actually going to have it generate an outline for the proposal response that draws from my past proposal response and aligns with the requirements listed in this RFP. Give it pretty clear. Here's an outline. Okay, it wants a cover letter. It's going to tell us what we need to include, an executive summary, our qualifications. It breaks it down with the enumeration, which I particularly love because sometimes when you start to format things, it's nice to have that enumeration in there. And then it's going to give you these different pieces, right? So now what I can ask it to do is say, like for this part, I put in my bio, right? And I can say for section 3.2 in the outline use my CV and bio to generate a new bio sketch that demonstrates my capability to lead this project. So it's pulling from the documents that I put in. It's also showing in this one in particular, it's bringing in past projects that are from the other proposal response that I included. So it's giving this information. I'm just doing a scan of this right now, and there does not seem to be anything in here that was made up about me. So if I'm just doing kind of a scan of my bio based on what the prompts that I gave it. So now we can say it's aligned to the RFP requirements. But maybe this is a little bit too long for my response. So I can say, can you make this bio brief, no more than 200 words, and focused on how my skills align with the RFP requirements. So this is the part where if you get content, you can go back and have it rewrite content. So there are times when it will generate something and I find that it's not into the level of depth that I want it to. And so I will go back and reprompt and say, can you enhance your response? And I might actually go find a source. So, for example, if I'm writing a section that's specific to a methodology and I know that I want to cite a specific researcher or evaluator or somebody that's done something in the field, I would go and find that source, upload it, and say, can you incorporate this methodology into your response? And then obviously it's on us as the human to go back and make sure that it's paraphrasing, not direct quoting, or it's not just plagiarizing material. We want to make sure that we're taking those steps. That's the piece that AI can't do, but we can give the prompts to make sure that we're getting that information. So now it's saying, do you want to draft similar bios for supporting team members, right? So if we wanted to kind of, continue in this vein, we could have it do that. I'm just showing this one particular example. The other thing is they have different models that are coming out. So right now there's this research preview, which I haven't actually looked at, but it's good for writing and exploring ideas is what it says. So in ChatGPT, you can explore the different models and see if you get different responses from the chat that better align with what you're looking for. Like I said, this one's new, this ChatGPT 4.5. I haven't played around with it too much, but I did just recently see, oh, research preview. I was like, that seems like it could be intriguing. So this is just kind of how it's here. So Maria showed in Notebook LM, you have to save the note in order to maintain it. This already set it up as a new project for me. So my history with this particular chat is going to be right over here. It doesn't go anywhere unless I choose to delete the project. So everything's saved. So if I go back, so for example, I've worked on other proposals in the past, right? I have this proposal. You can go back and look at, my chat history. It even does things like estimates of the budgets for you, right? So you can have it do that. Again, there are different models that might be better than others. I've also used ChatGPT to do literature reviews or scan the literature and have it do like an annotated bibliography. The one thing I will say, and I'm going to switch back over to our presentation because I want to make sure that we have time for questions, is with the prompting on it, you want to, for ChatGPT, because it is pulling from the web, I always make sure that it includes the link to the source, the direct link to the source that it's citing, as well as I will tell it to find peer-reviewed literature. So that way it's not just scanning out there and finding a random website or a blog post or something. It's actually looking at available literature. So those are kind of tips that I've found helpful when I'm using it. And I'm going to go ahead and shift back over to our presentation because we have a couple more slides. And they get to a couple of the questions that some of you all have asked. So Maria, I'm going to turn it over to you, I think, to take this slide, if I remember our flow correctly, or was this one still me? Oh, you're on mute.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, of course, I'd be happy to do this one. So in terms of how to handle the challenges of AI, Teri, do you mind just zooming in a little bit because the font is way too small? So in terms of how to handle the challenges of AI, um, first of all, is the hallucinations that we've talked about already. So proper prompting, like what Teri just mentioned about, only use peer-reviewed sources or only use sources from this organization or etc. So that helps with mitigating the
Quick,
hallucinations.
just a quick side note. Terry, you're showing both screens. I just don't want you to show anything you don't want to show.
Yeah. So Google Notebook LM may work for you if you'd like to try that out. In terms of confidentiality, changing the settings, of course, may help a little bit. So for example, under ChatGPT, if you go to the top right of your screen and in the home main screen, you have the option to for the model not to use your data. So that's one possible option. Removing any identifying information, only using publicly available information, for example, not uploading other people's data, of course. So just some basics, just to help us out. And then I'll turn it over to Terry for good prompts versus bad prompts.
Yeah, and I think MJ actually had a quote really, really early on in the chat, something about AI can't replace us, but it's all about our prompting or how we're using AI. And I think that that is 100% true. The more clear and precise you can be, the more directive you can be, the better your resulted. It's like that old philosophy of like if you put good in, you're going to get good out. It's that sort of mentality. So just knowing kind of what is a bad prompt versus a better prompt, and then re-prompting tips. I kind of shared a little bit of those, but Maria and I spent some time and we said, like, what would be a bad prompt and what might be a better prompt? So a bad prompt is just review this RFP and tell me what you think about it, right? Versus a better prompt, review this RFP and tell me if the deliverables identified are feasible within the timeline provided in section XX of the RFP. Provide a summary of the requirements mapped to a timeline, right? So we're giving it very clear, very specific information. A bad prompt, review my CV and tell me if I can apply for the attached RFP. Review the requirements in the attached RFP against my professional experience in the CV provided and tell me if I meet the requirements. Develop a bio sketch that paraphrases. And you saw Maria and I both do kind of that example of that prompting. Write a narrative for the methodology section, right? It's going to pull from what it's picking up from the RFP. So it's likely to just repeat a lot of what is in the requirement, but it doesn't demonstrate necessarily that you understand how to fulfill that requirement, right? It might just tell, oh, they're looking for, this specific evaluation design or theory or methodology. And so what we might want to do is clarify that we want it to write a narrative for that section that includes qualitative and quantitative approaches, aligns with the requirements, limited to 500 words, does not use bullets, include the following peer-reviewed sources, right? And so trying to kind of give it, or you can give the, like I did in the example, put in a past response that you have. And so I think AI is a lot about our prompting. I've found that there are times when asking it to like the re-prompting is really helpful as well. So if it doesn't generate what you want it to the first time, you can give it a re-prompt and say, let's try that again. I like to tell ChatGPT very specifically, do not use bullets, do not use icons, do not use little image markers, those types of things, because it will kind of put that into place. So that's kind of the content that we have. We are open to answering any questions that you all might have. And Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, you guys are this is your first time hosting. So some of us would be remiss not to say, Teri, tell us about your dog behind you, because we all want to know who your puppy is.
There's two. So the one on the bed is Snoopy. That's the black and white one. And then the one in this bed is Kali. Her name is short for Caliente, so she's my hot dog. And Snoopy because he's black and white. We weren't as clever on that one.
Two quick questions, and I know we're pushing time, but I love to ask these questions first time people host, because there's a lot of us who are constantly trying to figure out how to make this independent consulting thing work. And so this is a general question. If you had to start all over again, you didn't have your network of clients, how would you get started with a consulting practice? This does not have to be about AI, but it could be. If you had to start all over again, how would you initiate your consulting practice? And feel free to jump in, Maria, as you guys are both thinking about this.
Yeah, I can definitely chime in. So I would, of course, the usual networking and everything, but sometimes I find that we struggle with getting guidance. So I found that establishing a custom GPT specifically as my coach or coach advisor for independent consultant is extremely helpful. In fact, I still go back to it every week or two just to ask it a random question that I haven't figured out yet. I've learned how to build my own custom GPT, which is super simple. I mean, I mean, it takes literally 10 seconds. And then you can have your own kind of mini expert that's with you all the time and to whom you can flip questions about consulting strategy or networking or anything, LinkedIn or anything like that. I find that kind of help is extremely helpful. And to be honest, the advice that has been giving has just been amazing. It does not replace a human coach, but still for quick day-to-day small questions, even bigger strategy things, I would definitely go to it.
I guess I'll answer differently. So, yes, I would 100% start an independent consulting gig, I guess, if you want to call it that, now doing. I think for me, I came from a larger organization and had a large network. And so that was helpful in terms of starting kind of on my own independently, was being able to kind of bounce back to people that I knew from that network. And I think that that's 100% it. Relationships are key to this work. They're key to, finding collaborative partners. Maria and I did not meet prior to this. We met at one of the IC topic chats and just decided, hey, this is a topic that both of us are somewhat interested in, and presented together. So, those types of things were just kind of putting yourself out there, and networking maybe in different ways, I think, is something that is really beneficial and really useful.
In a couple of words, is now a good time to start an independent consulting practice?
Yes, but stay away from federal dollars.
Yeah, how do you feel about that, Maria?
At least in education, that's my feeling right now. I gotta lean on other things.
I'm hearing you.
Yeah, I feel that is now a good time. It's a very challenging time that I'm not sure that it's the ideal time, but I'm not sure that there is an ideal time, to be honest with you. I mean, it takes quite a bit of effort. For me in the aid sector, there's all these aid sector cuts everywhere, so it's particularly difficult. But there are ways to do that, and there are specific podcasts that I found super helpful because I only launched my work about 3 years ago. Before that, I was a full-time staff in various organizations, but I've benefited from specific podcasts that have been extremely helpful, networking, leveraging your previous connections and all that stuff. So it's still a learning journey. I still make mistakes, but I'm always learning and growing. So I find there's no ideal time. Any time is a good time to launch an independent consulting business.
Well, thank you for everything today. We're going to stick around for questions, but for all the people out there in YouTube land, we'll see you guys later.